right. Hello.
Hey there.
Good morning. Is it raining on your side? It's raining over here. It's all good. It's all good. Thank you, Clayton. Gave me this nice little t-shirt. Appreciate it, brother. Um, Hopefully you're having a good day. Put this phone up a little bit on the table for you. Hopefully you're having a good day and your hearts and your hearts are prepared. You had two wonderful introductions. You had a wonderful prayer for us. You had Eden talking about how the incredible praise for an incredible God. You had Jeff sharing with us that our own sense of surrender and our own invitation to the King of Kings and Lord of Lords, the Spirit of Truth, that please bring the new wine out. You know what you tell the Spirit of Truth? Bring it on. Bring it on. When you say that, you're not just talking about the how well it sounds, but there's a process of getting new wine out of these old wine skins, or putting new wine in, but also getting to that place of new within me. And it is always going to be a challenge and a change involved in that. And so hopefully that you are bracing yourself, preparing yourself during this season for the challenge and change.
Right.
And the wonderful fruit that comes with that kind of pruning process.
Right. Well, I am embracing challenge and change. And in me doing that, I have had to really, make sure that I stay in tune with the Spirit, as opposed to be in tune with people's needs and fears and whatever it is that they were attempting to do. Because I realized this is not the regular season just to be involved in any and everything, but it's a season where you have to choose to say, God, I'll follow you and I'll trust you during this season.
Mm-hmm. One of the things we talked about, if I bring it up, hopefully it'll come up to these slides eventually. We talked about last week pretty much, and we were Wednesday and the week before that, we were talking about being in the right time.
Right.
And knowing what time it is, and how to master your emotions and manage your energy.
Right.
You're not going to master energy. You're not. That's like trying to master God. You're not going to master that. But what you can do is manage it with your choices, and with you being present enough to know what energy is prompting you to do what you have to do. Like you just said in the beginning, Deron, about recognizing how to deal with other people's fears, not allowing yourself to get swept up in the energy of those who maybe prior to this did not know how to manage it, didn't even know that you should manage your energy. And we came upon this because we were talking about Abel and Cain, and this Genesis 4 story of Abel and Cain. And then we went over to Hebrews, because Hebrews makes a point that we don't get out of, that's not clear in Genesis. But when it was re-mentioned in Hebrews chapter 11, verse 4, it said that Abel offered his by faith. It was prompted by faith. So it's not that we don't have proof that Cain did anything major in our minds. He bought less, he did this, based on the facts and what we can see, we can at least go off of Hebrews 11:4 that says one thing we do know. Because we do know that Cain bore fruit with his seed. We know that he did the work in the field. And we know that if that was his assignment, he was in his own lane. So all those things for us are good checks on are we in the right space?
Right.
But what was missing, or what needed to be developed, it needed to be developed, was what motivated Cain, what was moving him, what kind of energy was moving Cain during that time. Right. So what is safe to say that Cain was not motivated by faith to do. And the reason why I say that, Deron, because if you're not, when these kind of challenges come right here, it'll feel like that disaster, that wrong time wrong action
Right.
disaster that happens, excuse me, when these kind of moments come.
Right.
You know, we talked in a previous service about Job.
Mm-hmm.
Job was facing a very similar time. His world, major adjustments needed to be made. Life as he saw it changed. He was on top, and all of a sudden he had nothing. He had people around him. He had taken care of all these people. He helped all these people. You can see in these conversations that Job just doesn't get it. He just didn't get it. But the thing that kept Job, I believe, is this: that Job had faith.
Mm-hmm.
That he had faith, and so when he was evolving and learning his actions during that time, he had a right action to a right time. It was time for him to grow.
Mm-hmm.
It was time for the new wine to come out of Job, called out by that incredible God that Eden sang about. And he said this, you know, when all these things happened to Job, here came these voices. It says the voices, the angels were saying one thing, but the adversary was making this statement right here.
Right.
Does Job serve you for nothing? See, we all have to come to answer that question the same way Cain answered the question, did not answer the question, why are you angry? Why are you angry? Well, here's was the question to Job. Does Job, or presented about Job, did Job serve you for nothing? Take everything he has, touch his stuff. Touch his stuff, and he will show you that his stuff has more value, God, than his life. You know what I'm saying? He will ruin his life to save that stuff. Try it. He will sell out his family to save that stuff. He would act out and not consider who you are, God, in the midst of saving that stuff. Because God showed in that story how important it was. What was important to him, he said, but don't touch his soul.
Right.
Don't touch his soul. It wasn't about his stuff. Job wasn't fighting for his stuff. Job was fighting for his relationship with God. I don't understand. What did I do? What didn't I do? I did what Job could have said. I did all I know to do. And you know what God could have said to Job? You did do all that you needed to do. But I'm getting ready to do a new thing, so you wouldn't know this.
Right.
You wouldn't understand this. You wouldn't comprehend this. You couldn't control this.
Right.
But just remember who I was to you. And Job did that. And when that challenge on the front end, I'm telling you, on the front end they come. And that challenge on the front end came from friends and family members. The wife said, hey, curse God and die. Job, the adversary said, does Job serve you for nothing? Touch his stuff and watch him curse you to his face. Now, I ended the service on this last time, but I want to start on this because I want you to think about when Ron revealed all these things that you said last service and these good things. I want you all to be considering at the same time, God, is that me? How did I answer that? Is my actions right now showing that I only served you when you were I'm a fair weather friend.
Right.
You know, you're only good to me when you're serving me.
Right.
Did I do this because people told what's prompting me? What's motivating me to be a child of the light right now?
Right.
Am I turning my lights down because things aren't going my way? Financially, and it looks like the things I used to be able to do, and now I'm restricted, this and that. Can I be convicted right now of being sold out for the Lord? Or am I not doing so well at this challenge? So this is what I'm hoping. One of the questions we will want to answer. And if we're not finding that space, then let's sing that song that Jeff sang. God, bring new wine out of me.
Right.
I'm fighting for some old stuff, you know, and now introduce into your conversation. All right, I all these things, this is happening. I don't know this, I'm uncertain. So guess what? I can't do nothing about that, as Will would say. Go with the waves and God bring new wine out of me because I know that you're good at doing that.
When he mentioned those waves that are behind us now, the reason I chose those, one of the reasons I chose those waves is that many of us are being hit with waves of emotions, waves of temptation, waves of skate waves of how to, you know, ways of how to advance and succeed and those kind of things. There's nothing wrong with advancing and succeeding, but it's also ways that if you don't pay attention, that will take you and your family and your friends out, because it took me 24 hours to understand, whoa, what was I just dealing with? It ain't that kind of season, my friend. I can't be involved with that, because I'm not going to use my reputation and my influence in such a way, because there's an opportunity there.
And that's so special, because somewhere in there, probably going towards the end, you talked about opportunity, and we kind of touched on that, and that, you know, there's an opportunity for the world. It's not illegal, but it may be a right time, but it might be a wrong action for a child of God. To, you know, and so right now, yes, we're going to be offered all kinds of opportunities, but you are still the child of light being offered these opportunities. And one of the things that happens during this time is, like in a housing crisis, when things like this happen, of course, millionaires will be made, and of course, people can make money. But if I use the example, not now, because we're still in it, but of the housing crisis, yes, in a capitalist society, people capitalized on other people's misery and downfall. Right. And yes, there were misery millionaires made, but also there were people's lives that were destroyed. And you ask me which ones does God care about the most? Why am I saying that? So that we won't lose one for the other. Right. You can't serve two masters. Right. Something is going to get the best of your attention. Not that two rights can't be on the table at the same time, but if one of them is what is moving you to do, then that one is the one that you are being swayed by. When you think about these ways, and you think about how we are when we're at the beach, what waves can do when you say moving, how waves can move you, and we'll talk so well about it at the end of the last service. But you know how you can be at the beach and you look up, you 2 miles away from your stuff.
Right, because of the current that was in the waves.
Absolutely, you never saw the waves move you. You know, so you have to be present and know how to handle yourself, and know that waves do move, right. And know the possibility that waves can reshape rocks. To know the power of the wave. Don't take it for granted that being in the ocean is all play. In the ocean of life, it's not all play. So it takes some discernment, and it really takes, what discernment are we talking about right now? The discernment of knowing what time it is right now, when everybody around you life has been affected. Right. Where will your heart be? Because where your treasure is, that is where your heart's going to be.
Right. And I had to make a decision this week on a couple of things, and say or one thing, and say I wasn't paying attention to the conversation. But sometimes, and I'll be honest, some people will try to take advantage of where you are, or advantage of certain areas of confusion, or whatever the case may be. And I said, I'm not going to allow myself to be caught up in something like this, because I understood this is design. And if we did it with a wrong time, wrong action equals disaster. And I had to say no, and we'll come to that, but I had to say, and it took me a whole full day to be sitting down and meditating, and said, whoa, wait a minute. What was that conversation I had? I said, can't do it, because I can't bring that kind of energy into my space.
Absolutely. And this is why when we are told to guard our heart, you know, sometimes we use that as against people, but no, it's really for you. Last week we talked about Cain and Abel, and the point that we were getting to is with that energy, with those emotions was going to take him. you know, or that energy wrapped up in that, with that, connected with those emotions, going to take him. And from that question, he went and he murdered his brother. And then Wednesday, those are two brothers. We talked about the two sisters, Martha and Mary, and how when it was one of those right time, wrong action. Martha had the right time, wrong action. Mary had the right time, right action. And Martha didn't know what time it was. And Jesus had to tell her, you don't get what time it is. Mary understands that I don't have much time. Listen, the teacher is here. So the student needs to appear. Meaning, the student needs to be ready because the teacher was there. And the teacher, in Jesus' case, wasn't going to be that kind of person in their life because, again, he had a very short time to finish his mission on earth. So Mary knew what time it was based on what Jesus said about himself. With Martha, Jesus said, you are upset about a lot of things. You are anxious and upset about many things. So oftentimes when we kind of want to ask ourselves, what does it look like to be prompted by faith or be prompted by something other than faith? Anxieties, fears, anger, upset, those irritations, and my point is, it's in your body. Jesus wasn't telling her anything that wasn't in her body, but she overrode it with action. And then he said this, distracted. You are distracted by many things. And then those big things were named. Why is that important? Because our goal here is that you will not spend your life sowing seeds, not just financial seeds, but doing things that are not effective. Full engagement means all of you come into the room. So if part of my heart is stuck somewhere because I have not grieved well, then guess what happens? All of me is not in the room. And what was the compliment to David from God? David served me wholeheartedly. It's not that he didn't make mistakes, but he served wholeheartedly. He put his whole heart in there, whatever size heart that was at each situation. And so what do we want you to understand as well? That if we don't get our heart involved in this head game, and we don't get to fully engage and bring us into the room, all of us into the room, we are going to not get the returns, the success, the return in spirit, and the promises to generations, and meaning the promise for us not to transfer our unfinished business to the next generation, right, but that we will close those doors, that we will deal with them appropriately, and that we will be present. We will be present so that we won't be working on the past and then losing all the ground that we were supposed to gain in our future. So guess what? Heart conditions, a wholehearted service, we have to get to that because that's what God wants. He said, I want all your heart. Right. And that's what we need to get to.
This was called managing my energy. And I was thinking about someone who they're not managing their energy has put them in the company of someone who was willing to get over on them, someone who was willing to take them, and it happened on several different occasions, and take them in two different rooms, and two different, when I say rooms, spaces, realms, because they needed to make it. And they decided, this person is vulnerable. I'm going to get this person to be a part of my business or part of my whatever it was. And this person who was trying to do the best they knew how to do found themselves caught up in someone else's energy and now having to suffer consequences. And their daughters, granddaughters, and everybody had gotten involved with all of this stuff, because if you're not careful, we don't understand. This is the season where, on that slide number 2, this is the season of learning to master our energy, our emotions, and the energies that accompany them. Griefs, pain, past addictions to avoidance, habits, And so I put that there to say sometimes when things get tight, when things get really complicated, sometimes we see roads to take that will definitely take us off course in our life. But if we are more focused on the material than we are the actual spiritual, then what will happen is we will make allowances to do things and be involved in things that are just not wholesome.
Yeah, of course. And listen, when two things I thought from that, Deron. When Job was about to be tried, as it would say, try my servant. Have you tried my servant Job?
Right.
When it was Job's time to be tried to see if he served God for nothing, or did he serve God for things and promises,
right, versus
relationship, then the adversary and the angel showed up. And you have to know that both of those things are in a row.
Right.
When Jesus was being tempted, was led by the Spirit to the mountain to fast, guess who showed up? Having a full-out conversation.
Right.
The adversary.
Right.
But there's a story in the Bible about Abraham, and it's one of my favorites. And David made another point too. But Abraham, and when he finished, he had just finished a fight, a war, or some kind. I'm calling it a challenge, right? And he was coming back. He won the war, so he's coming back. You know, back then that means he came back with women, children, and anything that the adversary or the opponent would take. Women, not just things, but people.
Mm-hmm.
So when he came back, he met two kings.
Right.
He met the king of Salem and Melchizedek. And the first king, Melchizedek, conversation with Abraham sounded something like this. Bless God that allows you to do this.
Mm-hmm.
That was the, and then Abraham gave a tithe to him.
Mm-hmm.
And gave him. Then the king of Salem saw Abraham, and he said this: give me the people, and I'll give you money. Right. You keep the money, because from the spoils, it was people and money. You keep the money, but give me the people. Right. And Abraham said this to that king. He said, I will take nothing from your hands. I will not let you say that you made me rich. I won't let it be said, because I already know you're going to walk out there and brag about it, right? But I ain't going to let it be said that wherever I am, I'm there because that's what you did under these circumstances. Mm-hmm. So what I'm saying is, again, to you, two kings, angel, adversary. You're not just going to hear the voice that is for you. You're going to hear the voice that sounds like it's for you, that may be against you. And even after Job went through that and passed that, situation, this is how it looked in real time. His wife said, are you still holding out? Curse God and die. See, in the spiritual world, it sounds like just don't serve you for nothing. And the angels and all, they're talking on that level. But when people are being used, their energy is being used, like you were saying, by that evil inclination, that adversarial spirit, it comes out like this. What are you doing? You know what you can be doing during this time? You can be making some money during this time. The earth is crying. Families are crying. Families are devastated. God continue. But what I won't do, me. See, there's two things on the table. And in this world, they're both legal. But you have to know, what time is it? Where are you going to direct your energy, and what is prompting your next moves day after day after day after day? Does any of this have anything to do with what the Father cares about? I think what the world cares about. But as children of resurrection and children of light, where's our heads? Mm-hmm. Are we prompted by fear? We're afraid we're not going to make it. So we go and we try to build this confidence up in ourselves. This is a season where, in order to get to the new thing, you're going to have to, I think one of them said, burn the flames of the old. Right. or put out the flames of the old. Well, you're going to have to be open to these new things, but know that there's always going to be that tempter that's going to come in, and it's not God. God said, when you're tempted, don't say it's me. It's you. You're tempted by your own desires. You have some desires, and that tempter can speak to something in you because it's already alive. But put that flame out for a minute. Maybe not forever, but for right now, for right now, what is prompting you?
Right.
The same as what Cain, what prompted you? Were you afraid? What were you worried about? What are you worried about? This is pruning time. And there's things happen on this earth, and there's things happen in the spirit. And my prayer is that God be first in your life. And then he said, if my kingdom is first, I'll show you how to handle all those other things. I'll make those other things available to you. If you first, if you seek in my kingdom first. Right. But you got to ask that. And that is not what Cain was doing.
Right.
And all his good stuff was not affected. So guess what? You can have a right time and have a wrong action, which means this: you be in the state zone, not in success zone, not with the spirit.
Yeah, and that's when, I didn't realize it, but I realized, I said, do you want to take the consequences that come with actions that are in the flesh and not in the spirit of wisdom? Do you want to try to face that? And I said, wow, God, I'm thankful that you exposed me to what was going on and what is happening, because I just don't want to be in that season. This is the season for learning to master our emotions and energies that accompany them. Grease and past addictions, avoidance habits. This is also, this will be accomplished by learning to unlearn. That's a slide. This will be accomplished by learning to unlearn. And I had to make a decision in my own personal life to say, okay, I see opportunities and all these different things that are happening, but no, I am not going to put myself or people I love in a position to now have to overcompensate to be able to make something bad good.
This is Martha and Mary. Martha was overcompensating. Martha, he said, you're doing many things. You are distracted. See, right now, there are seasons where there's particular fruit that grows in particular seasons. As a matter of fact, in Revelation, when it's talking about the tree of life, when we're coming towards the end, it says there's a new fruit on that tree every month. There's a new fruit. So say that month is really a year, that spiritual month is really a year or so in our real time. But the bottom line is, in different seasons, there's a certain kind of fruit that grows. So in whatever fruit right now, which I think is faith, I think is our ability to really live out. Faith is the substance of things that are not seen, which makes it uncertain and puts us in that space. I think this is a grand opportunity for us to practice the kind of patience that the Lord shows in that comes along, that goes along with faith. But there is some fruit that's going to grow in this season. If you don't get that fruit in this season, you're going to have to wait for the next cycle of life. In the Jewish tradition, that's 7 years. You got to wait for another cycle of life for slates to be clean, things to be freed up, and what they call it, jubilee. And now you're going to have to wait for that 49th year, or that 7 times 7. You have to wait for that. So there is a fruit that is being watered and nurtured, and the sun is shining on it in the right kind of way, and the rain is coming on it in the right kind of way, that will be produced during this season. And as Jeff said, you got to welcome that new part.
Right. And I think that for myself, in the next slide I will go to when I call it, is this is a season where you must change the rules. You must change the rules of what is accepted as normal, or whatever the case may be, and decide, I will not be caught in a space of rebellion. I will not be caught in a space of a fast talking person. I will not be caught in someone. Why? Because in my own life, I've had to advise and help people to say, did you not hear what this person was saying to you? Did you not understand what the outcome was that was going to be? I've had a couple of people, and I get that they were looking for opportunities, but I also realized in the last 3 years that they were trying to entice me into some areas. And I had to now put up a boundary and say, no, I'm not the one. You're talking to the wrong one. I'm not going to be involved in that, what you're doing, because that what you're doing is crooked. And I do not want to have anything to do with that. Mm-hmm. And what that meant is I had to now turn down the possibility of enhancing myself material-wise, but at the same time, taking myself to a space of criminality or evil inclination, but then soothe it over with some words so that I would feel better. I hope that makes sense.
It does. It reminds me of when Jesus was talking to someone, and he said, and they began to try to and get him to engage in one of their arguments, their schemes, opportunities, even whether it was good or evil, but it was something. And they gave him a coin, and they said, "Who's a coin with Caesar on it?" And said, "Who should people serve?" Because they tried. It's a trap. It was a trap. And he said, "Give to Caesar what is Caesar. Give to God what is God." See, that level of temptation, somebody trying to rope you into something that's an opportunity to them, something that maybe not at this very moment, but has the possibility of a trap. You have to be present enough with yourself to know what it's like when you're being pulled by greed, or you're being pulled by worry about money, and you're being pulled by, you have to know that. You have to know that, which means, and I think it's where you're going to go to one of these slides when you talked about radical honesty, or being radically honest. You want to pull that slide up? It was a good one. Now I want to try to figure it out.
Gotta give me a sec.
It had to do with rules, I think. Maybe it's a change of rules.
Yeah, I was there.
Okay.
Change the rules. It's time for you to rewrite your future and live into it. How? Forgive yourself, make a declaration, and live into it. When one begins the process of changing the rules in one's life, it's a commitment to be radically honest, a season where you must question everything. I had built my life into that everything. I had built my life into what I thought it should look like. But then I had to begin to learn that, no, you got to question everything that you're involved in and what you're doing, because you are now bringing others into a certain realm or a certain frequency, energy that will cause them to have to deal with issues that they wouldn't have had to deal with.
Well, especially, and why this happens in relationships, because when we trust each other, we say yes faster to a relationship, person we're in a relationship with, than another, than something, than a stranger. And so, in being, you said you have to question everything. It sits without principle. Why are you so angry? Cain, why are you angry? Martha, why are you distracted? What are you doing? Job, do you serve God for nothing? See, meaning this. Are you doing this for nothing? These are things. Listen, there's no figure saying this when you deal with the other than your Martha and Mary. That was a physical encounter. But there's no with your Cain and your Job. There was no physical figure. That's a voice. That's a voice. If it's a spirit, it's not visible. So what was happening? Here is say Job's thoughts crashing him. He probably never had to figure out whether he served God for nothing, because he was in that stride. And what happens to that, Job, just like us, then when that is broken, we mad at something. We're mad at the world. We talked about that last week. We're mad at reality. We're mad at something.
Right.
And so that piece where this is the time to question everything, but not so much other people. Why are you angry? Let the question, even why are you so bothered with that person? Even if they are ridiculous, why are you that bothered with them in the middle of a pandemic? You got to listen. What time is it? It is time for me to use everything I have to stay present, to stay focused on what matters. And sometimes when trouble hits like this, if I come to you in a good season, we would have been able to say what mattered because our minds weren't so troubled. But right now, we can say what matters. Well, a lot of things matter now because there's a lot of big things on the table. But you got to find the light in all of that noise. You got to find that true voice in all of that noise. And that is the work that we have to do during this season because there's going to be a lot of pulls. Like you said, somebody was pulling you with their conversation and their opportunities and maybe their worries, or maybe they heard somebody else say, people making money right here, people making money right there, and it may be true, but you have to ask yourself, is that what you want to be?
Right, and I had to ask myself, do I want to fight and involve myself with some people who it would constantly be a battle or something, and I don't need that kind of stress in my life or in my family's life. Why? Because I'm trying to make a declaration into my future, rewrite my life, and live into that life.
And as I said, how does that cross over to me in a way that is simplified? I ask myself, what do I want more of and what do I want less of?
Mm-hmm.
And I answer that not from being regulated by the outside, but from the point of I want peace.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be stressed, and I don't like anxiety, being nervous and being afraid. I don't like that feeling.
Right.
So and so I get to ask, what do I want more of? And when you ask yourself that question, believe me, your body, your mind is going to send a response, some kind of answer your way in terms of taking your temperature. Mm-hmm. What do you really want more of? What do you want less of? Sometimes the way you get to see that is you begin to be confronted by lots of frustration, and it's your body trying to tell you, you didn't know what you wanted more or less of, but now I'm showing you what you don't want more of because look at what it's doing to you. Mm-hmm. Look, listen, I don't want to do all that fighting. I ain't pushing nobody up the hill, no resistant person. Up the hill, I'll leave that over to the cast that care on God. Why is that? So I can continue to do what I have to do. I ask myself, what do you want more of? What do you want less of? And I began to allow that to peel that back and allow that to unfold and reveal itself. Right. Even the parts that was a bit uncomfortable for me.
And when we say declaration, I learned this from Martin Luther King, where he would say, I see a world that looks like this. I see a world where children are able to play with each other. And he kept declaring his future and declaring what it was going to look like, because there are temptations that sometimes that makes you want to take a shortcut. Makes you want to take the easy way.
Right, and he had to keep up with that vision. That's a great example for this reason. You have this person who's saying, I want a world where children will be free to do this, that, and the other. Mm-hmm. Well, why is it important to say that? Because when those temptations come, or when somebody comes with with an agenda or an opportunity that looks good, you can ask yourself, how, because that's about your values. Does that fit into my value? What are my values that I declare every day? I value this. I value children having a world to live in a certain way. But I want y'all to hear this, because I want you to get into reality. That same person that said that was murdered at 36, and his children were without a father. Why am I saying it to you? Because sometimes we think when we make those declarations that our own life is not going to be troubled. Mm-hmm. and that we're going to live to see that outcome. Hebrews says that there's a whole lot of witnesses and people that came before us, and they didn't see the promise, but they lived like the promise was there.
Right.
See, you got to live like it's there, but again, that's so twisted because now religion has brought in the promises in a prosperity gospel wealth way that sometimes is about coming from radical truth.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it is just it is the things that move people and make people continue to do while they're getting further and further, being pushed by this way, getting further and further away from true, authentic faith, which is faith in God. But listen to the one who said he wanted children to have all this. You think he didn't want it for his own children? And then he left his children. They were young. They were young. So I want you to see this reality that you could want that. You could be sold out on that, but that does not guarantee you that you're going to live a long life getting to that place. But you just got to sow that into the earth.
Years ago, I learned from a great teacher that sometimes you make a certain decision on how you're going to live, then you spend the rest of your life maintaining.
That was Maxwell.
Yeah, maintaining that decision. And how you would maintain it. And I remember he was put in a position where he had a temptation that was stronger than what you could ever believe. And he knew he'd be able to get away with it. And he did it. And he cried in front of us saying, I was so tempted to do this. And he said, I knew I could have done this. And he said, I can't.
And it was exposing somebody's secret. I think that was the story. Exposing somebody's secret. One of the stories that he said that he was really, someone was spreading rumors, was saying that he did something, and the only way that he could defend himself is that he would have had to expose their secret, and he didn't want to do that. So he had to live through that, what people thought, his misunderstanding, his silence, you know. But what's the bottom line when someone does something like that? Only trust in goodness, in God, not the religious God. The God, I'm talking about the God that's bigger than the Bible. Only your trust in God. And how do you acquire that trust in God? You acquire that trust in God because of what he's already done. Right now, I can be nervous and scared and trembling with so many things going on in my life. But guess what? God, when I didn't know you well, and I knew you a little bit, and I prayed and I cast those cares, and I did that like a person who didn't really understand the word to the point of what I do now. Guess what? You brought me out.
Right.
And then you brought me out some other times too.
I don't know how they do it now, but I had 2 occasions in my life. So I maintained my decision. One was how they said, I can get you some free inspection stickers, and you wouldn't have to take your vehicles through inspection. So I would pay them some extra cash, and then I could have that. And I said, I can't do it, because if I do it, then I'm going to be caught up in trying to keep, this is years ago, caught up in trying to keep these lies and everything going. And I said, I didn't want to do it. And then there was another time I had the opportunity to get I had a swimming pool, and the pool liner I wanted was going to cost so much money. And I said, and so and when I went into the pool store, they didn't have patches that matched the pool that I had. And I had to make a decision right then and there. Am I going to go ahead and get this? And then I was tempted. I turned around and drove back to that pool place with someone I was teaching and asked him, go in there, buy this thing behind that counter. I know they don't sell it, but let's go ahead and buy it. And in that way, I could fix my pool and it wouldn't have a patch that was off. And I got there, and that's when I heard Wisdom say, my brother, what are you doing? You cannot put yourself in this, whatever this is, predicament, because you want a matching pool patch. get yourself that dark blue patch or whatever it is. But you know what I was willing to do at that time? And I was young in this wisdom, young in the spirit. I was willing to get the person behind the counter who worked there to sell it to me. And then God blessed him. He said, hey, I can't do this, man. Now he was like, I can't do this.
That's that donkey rebuking the prophet.
He's like, I can't do this, man. And I was like, well, you can just sell that. It's right there. Just sell that to me. And then that's when wisdom said, you were more willing to get something that was not kosher, that was not proper, so that you could do what you got to do. And the brother said, hey, I serve God, and I cannot do that. If I do that, it's gonna mess my conscience up. And then when I went to pull away from that store, wisdom said, you better leave that alone. You better leave that alone.
See, and what see, that's the seduction of the king of Salem. Y'all want a good story to read? And then bless you, go read the story about Abraham and Melchizedek and the king of Salem. So it's a great read because it's filled with stuff.
Right.
But listen, that's that seduction.
Mm-hmm.
See, what's the bottom line? Two things was true in that space. One, you way too concerned about a patch in a pool that only people who are going to see that are your friends, but you don't let strangers come back there.
Mm-hmm.
So why not take a chance to be that way so that you don't disturb that relationship you had with radical truth?
Mm-hmm.
You have that, and then it's a lesson in faith. I'm gonna have to believe God.
Right.
There are all kinds. Oh Lord, there are all kinds of things that I'm offered, and I had people say, "You sure you want it?" Nope. Nope. One of the things happened with me when I was going through the situation with my mother. My mother had done the power of attorney,
Mm-hmm.
and we had done everything except for her to sign it, and I didn't have the heart to push her to sign it because for her that meant that she was going to die. Now she ended up passing anyway, but while she was alive, she didn't want to deal with that.
Right.
So I had everything on there but her signature, and when it came time for me to have to deal with her estate with some people, a friend of mine, someone I know said, I can, there are notaries, there are notaries out there who will stamp this, the date that you wanted it stamped, to authenticate it, because everything was there but that.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, no, I'm not going to do that. No, I'm not going to. I'll go ahead and face Leviathan, and God knows it was that. God knows that it was a trial amongst trials for me. But guess what? When I come now that I'm on the other side, you know what I'm not talking about? What if somebody research and find out that I went and did that? What if somebody stumbled into this? What if that's why I say a person's partner is accomplice is their biggest enemy. What if that person have a bad day and start telling people, you know what I did for Jill Cloud? I went and backdated her notary something. No.
Right.
And I said no. And so, listen, that would have saved me a lot of pain. I know it would have.
Right.
It would have saved me a lot of pain. But I decided, God, I'm going to trust your process of whatever I'm going to go through. I'm going to trust you to keep me. And I was saying that, and I did not know. I had no idea I would go through what I went through. But I can tell you this, he kept me. How do you know? Because I'm talking to you right now in my right mind. But so it did. He did end up keeping me. But this is the seduction. And oftentimes it comes from friends and people you trust. And sometimes they try to help you out because they don't want to see you go through the pain.
Right.
And you have to know for yourself, am I going to read this thing? Am I going to read this or am I going to be legit? What happened with Jesus and the adversary? It said he left for a more opportune time.
Right.
And the second time it came back through his friend.
Right.
First time it was in his head.
Right.
Meaning he on the mountain, it's just the thoughts of being challenged to right before that change. But then it came through his companion, good friend and disciple, Peter. But these things are for a more opportune time. Look at. I'm gonna say this right, but don't run away with me. Look at Bill Cosby. I mean, he did some stuff when he was younger, And then when he got older, he made better decisions, much better decisions. But guess what happened to that old thing? It showed up.
I had a person try to, I had my truck, I had a truck, a K5 Laser, and it needed a catalytic converter. I didn't even know what a catalytic converter was. And it was going to cost $800 to get this catalytic converter. And I said, if I get this, I can have this truck and have the ease to be able to do what I wanted to do. And then I said to myself, how am I going to raise this daughter of mine in integrity and in honesty if I'm in here getting over on a catalytic converter because of how I want to be seen? In the same way with the patch on the pool, I want to be seen a certain way. And I finally said, Deron, take your truck, get it fixed, spend the money that you're supposed to spend. Don't try to get over on this. Well, I didn't know, Jill, that was part of my way of doing things. But when I came into God and understood what was happening, I had to make a decision. I can't do this kind of stuff, period.
Right. And this is why my language has been with those people who are helping me tighten up some stuff at my house that I just didn't do. I said, just give me the numbers. I need to know what I have to believe for.
Right.
See, that is me talking against any of that seduction that would be, oh, I can get you this, and I know somebody who do this, and I know somebody who can do this, and somebody who you can pay under the table. No. Let me know what I have to believe. Just tell me. See, what am I saying? Because that's an opportunity for me to grow in faith, to grow in, well, how does that look? You know what it does? That opened the door for me to ask some other questions, so that now I can see avenues that slick wasn't going to show me. Because what slick or hustle or whatever you call it would have done for me, it wouldn't have given me the opportunity, a better part of me, a better version of myself to rise up and say, how am I going to get this done? How can I do this? Because when you begin to ask questions, that's why I said you have not, because you ask not. Asking is a wonderful place to be in, but sometimes we don't ask, we fear, and then we run out there and we make things happen. And before you know it, I know more than a few people who 5 years later, they back where they started, account empty, struggling, clients not, had clients lost, crying over a very similar thing. And I said to them year after year, listen, stop, get off the tags in Virginia. Try to get out of that. When you did it the first time, it made sense because you was desperate. But now you're making that your way of life.
Right.
And so rather than fixing that thing right there, you spending money traveling, you doing all these things. And then when this comes up again, guess where you're going to be? Right entangled in that seduction. Just ask God. Why? Because that stuff have you looking over your shoulder when you're driving. That's what I can't do. It make you anxious.
I have a father who, I don't say I have a father friend who he told his son, you got to go ahead and do what you got to do with your vehicle, and you got to get your license, and you cannot be getting your car licensed in another state or something because you don't have the proper paperwork or whatever it is. And this son was creating so much problems for his father and his mother and his family and everything, because then he would now have to be picked up, or he would have to be doing certain things because he was riding on bad registration, He didn't live in this certain town, but then he got somebody else to get him tags in this certain town, but he wasn't a resident of that certain town. And his father had to say, do you understand what you're bringing into your life by not being on the up and up and doing what you got to do?
Absolutely. That's good.
Okay.
That's good.
Unlearn, let go what I know about life, and simply enjoy scenes being. When you manage your energy, it's about unlearning and letting go of what I knew or know about life, and simply enjoy the scenes being set before me in real time. That's a slide. In real time. God, and my prayer became, God, grant me the serenity to accept things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference between the two. This prayer, when I learned this prayer quite some time ago, I realized is that it was God saying to me, he was challenging me in that season. Now, it would bring a lot of fruit in my life once I learned to practice this statement. He says, God, grant me the serenity to accept things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Living one day at a time, enjoying one moment at a time, accepting hardship as a pathway to peace. Taking, as he did, this sinful world as it is, not as I would have it. There are times when we are in this season where a lot of us are having our backs pushed against the wall and just, going through what we have to go through. And we have to ask that God would grant us serenity, grant us peace of mind to accept things they cannot change, and give them the courage to change and have the tenacity to change what can be changed and to know the difference. In other words, you need to know, all right, that means to me, let me know the difference between what's right and what's wrong. Give me the courage, and living one day at a time, enjoying one moment at a time, accepting hardship as a pathway to peace. And what does that mean? Accept that, all right, things got hard right now. Things got a little challenging, but this is also the prelude to peace. But I'm going to have to learn how to be able to manage my energy, manage my emotions in this hardship, in these hard times. Why? Because that's the pathway to peace. Sometimes we must understand the things we go through are in our lives so that we can master getting past them, getting through them, and getting over them.
Right. And there's this proverb, Chinese proverb, I believe it is. But it talks about, again, when you just said it, the prayer says, let me take one day at a time, because that's the only space you can be present.
Mm-hmm.
Is in your daily. That's why daily bread life is so important. Give me my bread this day, my daily bread, because if I'm in yesterday, then I'll be worried. If I was yesterday, then I'll be depressed.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm worried about who I used to be and I'm not that person, that's where depression comes from. Because depression isn't what's happening, it's what has already happened. And so you're suppressing and pressing on something that's already in your space, already a part of your story. And then when you're in tomorrow, it makes you anxious. When you have your mind into what you believe is going to happen tomorrow, the way that you see it. So the only real power that you have that allows you to, that prayer to be that true to you, to have the peace of mind, because the peace comes from being present and being in that moment right there, right action, right time. Mm-hmm. There's no right time 2 days from now for this. Right action 2 days from now for this time. There's an action that belongs to this time right here. And you get to give me the peace so that I can discern right action in this right time.
I had to learn to stop being mad at the world. Mm-hmm. And accept things as they are and find my footing and the ability to walk on water. I had to find my footing and the ability to walk on water, on groundlessness terrain. I had to make a decision. Okay, I feel like I'm in uncertainty. I know I'm in uncertainty, but I'm going to, by faith, learn how to walk on water and just totally trust you, God, as I make it through this season. And although it is as trying as it could possibly be, I am going to walk on water, and I'm going to trust that you're going to keep me afloat, although I could do something to change the way it looks and feels. I said, no, I am going to learn not to be mad at this world, accept things as they are, and find my footing and the ability to walk on water. And when you do that, you learn how to have faith in trying and hard times, challenging times.
You know, when you think about the spirit, what the spirit does, it is my natural man that has to think about walking on water. But the spirit hovers. The spirit is always, you know what's moving those waves? Isn't it the wind?
It's the wind and it's the current.
And the current, but isn't the wind? What am I saying? That's the spirit. Wind, spirit, right? Mm-hmm. So the point is that spirit ain't being controlled by those waves.
Right.
It's not worried about those waves. It's, as a matter of fact, the spirit is a part of what was moving the waves.
Mm-hmm.
And when we can begin to see ourselves as a spirit that is possessing the body instead of the body that's possessing the spirit, then we can elevate our mind to what's possible for a spirit that's not possible for a body, but it is possible for a spirit. A spirit can transcend. Mm-hmm. It really can. It can look down. It can help and it look down at a situation so that you can see that view mm-hmm. of it instead of just the view from right here. But again, you have to know that and you have to believe that the real you is not this body. The real you is your spirit. Take your spirit away from this body be a dead piece of meat, flat line, and unable to move. It is your spirit that's animating your body.
Right.
It is your mind that's moving it. And that's the part, that's not just your brain, but your mind that's moving it. And so if you will allow yourself to get to know your real self, not this thing that's perishing, but the one that's the non-perishable part of yourself. If you let yourself know that, and that's why, how do you get to know that? Why are you angry? Mm-hmm. It's those questions. That's how you get to know that self. You have to add, it is your why part. You have to have that. You have to evoke a conversation. Why am I angry? Mm-hmm. And your memory will help you, because you know what, this happened to you. This person did this long time ago, and everybody since then been paying the price, trying to pay that debt to somebody else. Mm-hmm. Instead of you coming into contact with it, facing it, resolving it the best that you can, and then leaving it and going on with your future.
Right. That's good stuff. Slide number 6. It's time to become honest with ourselves and see. It's time to become honest with ourselves and see. That is, pay attention to what we have not been paying attention to and see. And this is the season where you have to make a decision. Am I going to get, I don't know how they do it now. I know it's through satellite, but when I was coming up and the cable really started coming to the homes and all these different things, a couple of people would offer me free cable. Mm-hmm. But if I got free cable, I would have to get a box that was jerry-rigged or whatever the case may be to get free cable. And I would say, Deron, you're not going to get this entertainment like this, so you can escape.
Let me tell you something. If you can't trust God for $20 a month, then get out of the night game. The worst case they would have been saving you was $20 a month. Mm-hmm. Back then, it's probably no more than, it's like $100 now, but back then it was like $20 a month. Mm-hmm. I just want you to see, oh yeah, I got this for free. You couldn't believe for that? Mm-hmm.
And that's where this is the season. This is the season, my friends, where we're all going to be challenged in so many ways. You're going to have to be able to make it through on solid ground. You're going to have to be able to make it through on a firm foundation.
You're going to have to be able to make it through on the solid ground. I'm going to add to what you're saying. On the solid ground that is spiritual, mm-hmm. which is that rock. Because technically you have to be able to make it through, what did you just say a minute ago? Oh, groundlessness. Mm-hmm. You're going to have to you're going to have to be able to be moved and trust. See, groundlessness is about you trusting. Groundlessness is this: I know there's a foundation I'm walking on, even though things seems to be be disturbed right now.
Mm-hmm.
But I know there is a firm foundation because I've had it before, and I may not get the old one, but I do know that firm foundations exist. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ride this way.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to ride this way. I'm not going to resist the way. I'm not going to argue with the way, because you're not going to win that thing, because that one is out of your control.
Right, and I'll listen to you. But you got to be at the point where you must understand that I was looking for a video I had of people walking on mud or it looked like quicksand. But
it was the muck and mire?
Yeah, muck and mire, I think it was. And they had to walk on this mud and their feet were sinking down into it. But it was a reminder to me that sometimes you're going to be in life where you don't need to walk in that. You don't need to fear that and trust that you're going to make it over this.
Again, absolutely. This is the time for pruning so that you can bear good. You continue to produce fruit.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe things were slowing down, and there's something that needs some light, some love, some type of love action that we each need as an individual. And so we get to pay attention to what we haven't been paying attention to, and that is how to love. How God teach me to die, will teach me to love. These are all the things you have to learn to obey. All of those things are teachings that you have to do. But what season is it right now? It's like Joe, it was an opportunity to trust. And how are you going to trust? If you're someone who has not been true to your commitment the way that you said you were going to, you may not have a whole bunch to fall to pull back on. But for those who know where they came from, and as the Apostle Paul would say, listen, I was the worst of sinners. I was disobeying. I was fighting to persecute the church. I was persecuting the Lord. I was tearing stuff up. I was the worst of sinners. Mm-hmm. But God, but I was ignorant. It was my unbelief. And Paul was a student of Hebrew, a student of from the tribe of Benjamin. He was taught by the best, and even knowing the best, at some point he had to be taught a more excellent way. He was still had some level somewhere, some unbelief, something that was stopping that flow, that was fighting against that river, against those waves. And he said, I was the worst of sinners. He said, but God, you called me so that other people who are sinners would understand what what he called it, the patience of the Lord, the great patience that the Lord has, because he wants all of us to be restored. Doesn't mean that we can do anything we want to do and be terribly unkind to people on a regular basis, but it does mean that the Lord wants the best for you. Just need your cooperation to do
it. PTSG as in good, or G as in growth. We know about PTSD, but many of us don't know about PTSG. And G means post-traumatic growth, meaning that you can go through a traumatic season, but there's so much growth that takes place in your soul while you're in this traumatic season. It's called PTSG, because once you get through that season, you now have skills and things to help you in the rest of your life. But if you have PTSD, then you're going to miss what is happening. I can't even remember what PTSD means now.
Stress, so post-traumatic stress disorder. Versus post-traumatic growth, which is the growth you have after the trauma. And that's where we're in. All of this revealing, I'm telling you, everything revealed, we read that in Ephesians last week, is light. All things revealed is light. All things exposed, that's light. Do you want the light or do you want darkness?
Right.
It's all light. And all you have to do is say, you already know you want light. You may not love the way it feels when it's getting you to that better, to that higher call. But nobody listening to this doesn't want light. Even atheists want light. They may not want religion, but they want light.
Right.
They want to see. Nobody wants to be blind
Right.
about life and love and what to do, how to handle these moments. We all want it, but this, what did Jesus have to say to his own disciples? Listen, the spirit is willing. It's the flesh that's weak. See, God so knows that your spirit is made of quality air, quality oxygen, quality breath, that he can tell you in your own rebellion. The spirit is willing. It's your flesh that's weak.
We must see opportunities. I'm on slide number 7. We must see opportunities for growth in the midst of pain. I had to learn to start seeing opportunities for growth in the midst of pain, suffering, confusion, uncertainty, and by faith, realize that we're bigger than this behavior that's offering ways out of growth pains. Bring it down, please. We have to learn to stop trying to avoid everything and avoid pain, but understand when you go through this pain, when you go through these different things. I have a friend who I call him crazy at times because he'll take his body to a certain place of pain. But now, in doing so, he ends up with the muscle. He ends up with the right strength and all these different things because he's willing to endure that. I was talking to somebody who has a trainer, and she was telling me how this trainer says, I have learned to take myself into that space of pain without having somebody else take me into that because of the benefits I get when I tear these muscles, when I do these different things. And you got to understand that pain and suffering and confusion and uncertainty by faith, and realize we're bigger than this behavior that's offering us ways out of growth pain. Refusing to take off ramps of distractions. You have to refuse to take off ramps of distractions. I have learned the hard way. It is better to allow yourself to go through a season of distractions and a season of things happening, and you choose not to get off into that area. We must choose to know when a situation reveals itself, we've entered the arena of practice on our way to mastering our energies and not being mastered by them. That's a slide. And so I'll say it again. We in the midst of pain, bring the slide up. In the midst of pain, suffering, confusion, uncertainty, and by faith, realize that we are bigger than this behavior that's offering ways out of growth pains, refusing to take the off ramps of distractions. We must choose to know, and I like when I wrote that, I put it in capitals, I must choose to know when a situation reveals itself, I've entered into the arena of practice on my way to mastering my energies and not being mastered by them. And so what that means for me for so many years is that I have to be able to know, all right, this season is hard on my thought process. This season is hard on me being able to have peace of mind. This season is challenging me to have to move when I didn't want to move. But I have to know it's also revealing itself. And I've entered the arena of practice on my way to mastering my energy and not being mastered by them. See, some of us, we choose to try to get out of it or get away from it. But the truth of the matter is, how do I go through it and go through it in such a way that it will help me and it will be a benefit to me? And in doing so, I have to be able to grow even through failure. I remember when I was getting my motorcycle license, and I was getting my motorcycle license, and in getting my motorcycle license, they said, who wants to go first to take the test? I said, I'll go first. Because to myself, I said, if I fail it, I'm just going to take it again. But I'm not going to allow fear to stop me from doing that. So, slide number, and I'm aware of the time, slide number 8, Kubler-Ross grief cycle. We've been talking about that. This is the season of grief for many of us. And I had to make a decision that I am not going to allow myself to be controlled by the dark nights of the soul that come with season of denial, season of anger, season of depression, season of going through. I must understand that God will take me past and through these walls and my soul while I'm on this journey. Unlearn, let go of what I know about life and simply enjoy the scenes I see before me. And I think we may have already read this. Grant me the serenity to accept things. Okay, we've already read that. And so for myself, if I go to slide number 12, Genesis 4, 6 through 7. And the Lord said to Cain, why are you so angry? Why do you look sad and depressed and rejected? If you do well, will you not be accepted? And if you do not do well, sin crouches at your door. Its desire is for you, but you must master it. And you have to understand, I had to understand, you don't have to, but I had to understand, master this season. Master your energy in this emotion, your energy and your emotions in this season. Don't let them cause you to act completely out of character because you're afraid or because you feel weak or you don't like the feelings of failure. Learn to sit in this failure. And when you sit in this failure, you will learn how to master and get up. When a situation reveals itself, we enter the arena of practice on our way to mastery. When a situation shows you got some issues, you got some stuff that you need to be able to deal with, it is time for me, I learned this quite some time ago, sit in it. Sit in that uncertainty. Sit in what's happening and learn how to take control of your energy and your emotions, because you will go through PTSD, which is you will have post-traumatic growth, and you will come out on top because you have learned that the world doesn't end when you have failed. The world keeps going. You have something you want to share, or are we done? Okay. The thing about time is because it's always a new day in space. Time doesn't allow us to predict, but it commandeers us to respond to the moment at hand. Example, there's a time and a season for everything. That is a scripture. And I have to be able to say, all right, if God is allowing this to happen right now, help me to be able to make it through this time. It's a balancing in that. An internal balance allows flexibility, fluidity, unpredictability, and room to evolve. Ecclesiastes 3 speaks of there being a time and a season for everything. We would want to grow to a place where we are connected enough to ourselves to know what we need and when we need it without counterfeit substitutes. I'm going to leave it at there. No, I'm going to do this. Slide 18, please. We must know what time it is. Wrong action, wrong time equals disaster. If I take the wrong actions at the wrong time, I can count that it's going to equal some form of disaster in my life or the people I'm connected to. Wrong action, wrong time equals disaster. Wrong action, right time equals a mistake. Wrong action, but the right time equals mistake. Right action, wrong time equals resistance. You got the right action, but you did it at the wrong time. And right action at the right time equals success. I pray, God, help me find the balance on what I've just said. Because once I find the right actions and the right times and understand this is not the right time to have that discussion. This is the wrong time to try to approach this subject. Then I'm able to see the balances of God.
And,
go ahead.
And I'll say this thing. And how can you get there? It's compassion.
Right.
You have to care to know what time it is. It's discernment. And discernment is about being connected to something, being right there in the space. And so if you are angry, have compassion on yourself. Mm-hmm. And know it's the wrong time for me to talk. Most of the time, it's the wrong time for me to talk. And I have the best understanding of myself. If you see that someone else is just afflicted, they're being afflicted by their circumstances, mm-hmm. afflicted by their inability to control their emotions, afflicted by the uncertainty of their future, and they're doing, making all kinds of moves. Recognize where they are, and don't bring in another form of aggression, because again, all that's going to do is take you back to the place of disaster. What is right time for me and right action is when I'm present. When I'm present with my breathing, or if someone else across from me is breathing and it is obvious that they're heated, I can respond to that time by being true to the moment and saying, listen, I don't need to push this person any further. Listen, the adversary already has him afflicted or her afflicted. What's the Bible say? Listen, when you go to restore brother, sister, do it gently. Do it gently. You know what that means to me? Be mindful. Be mindful of where they are, because sometimes you want to restore them, aggression on aggression, and you hit those two pieces of iron together. That in that case, iron may not sharpen iron. Iron will try to crush iron. So, compassion. I pray that you have the type of compassion that's needed.
Love you, and we beat you to it. We're going to turn this over, and my prayer is that you would be able to glean something from what we shared, and you would find peace this week in the midst of uncertainty. And my prayer is that if anything should go down between now and November the 3rd and the election or the week afterwards, that you would be prepared to be able to say, God, give me the ability to find peace in this moment, and the people around me to be able to find peace in this moment. Because there are some who would like to stir up confusion for us, but we have to make a decision that God is with us. I'm done. I thank you, and I turn it over to whoever's coming up next to close us out. Love you, sign language, and I beat you to it.
God bless.
Amen. And so this is where I believe we're going to go into prayer. You guys said, again, a lot of great information, a lot of great stuff. If I'm brutally honest with myself, and I believe that I'm not alone in this with everybody else, if I'm brutally honest, I would just really want my spiritual eyes and spiritual ears to be wide open so that I can flow like water, so that I can just move with the waves in the direction that God is pushing me. See, the thing that I'm going to end here is that you're going to expend energy one way or the other. You're going to expend energy either fighting against where God is trying to take you, or you're going to expend energy in just going in the direction that he wants you to go. But when you go into the direction that God wants you to go, that energy, once you expend it, it takes you to that growing place. It helps you in growth. When you keep resisting what God is trying to do, especially since none of us have any power over what God is trying to do, we should all just embrace the fact that God's up to something. And I'm just, in this season, I'm a part of whatever God's up to. So God, help me just be a part of, play my role in whatever it is that you're orchestrating around me, even if it hurts me, even if I don't understand what's happening. Help me to just embrace and just to flow with the waves, God. I just want to flow with the waves. Help me to expend the energy to grow and not expend the energy that I would have spent if I choose to do anything that will take me away from growth. So let's pray right now. And I pray that peace first and foremost will be with each and every last one of you. I pray that a sound mind will be with each and every last one of you. I pray, Heavenly Father, in the name of your Son, Jesus, yes, you are the Christ, the anointed one, my savior, my all. I pray earnestly right now, God, for everyone under the sound of our voice, God. Those that are stressed, God, I pray now that you show them direction of where to expend that stressed energy, God. Give them the directions, make it clear to us all so that we do not waste another moment, another second on things that we have no power to control. But help us, Father God, to step into the place where we can control some of the words that come out of our mouths. We can control the decisions that we make, God. Help us to master the art of doing well, God. Help us master the art of doing well, as you said to Cain on that day, God. You would do well. Help us to master that art, God, so that, Father God, our minds will not be plagued with the things that will take us away from you and away from our families, God. Help us, Father God, to not give in to the temptations of compromising in any aspects of our lives, God. Help us to make the sound decisions that will take us to a better place when this season changes into the next one. God, I thank you for this message. I thank you for this word. And I thank you for everybody that got something from it. And I pray that you have a supernatural meeting in their house, God, with some portion of this word, so that everybody can start expending the effort and the energy to make the decisions that bring them closer to you. I thank and bless you for another opportunity to be here in this space, in this time, as your servants. Bless Deron and Jill. Bless everyone else under the sound of my voice. It is in your name that we pray. Let God's people everywhere say amen.